Nigerian President Bola Tinubu's first supplementary budget features provisions for a fleet of SUVs for both himself and the First Lady, the acquisition of a yacht, which has now been clarified as belonging to the Navy, and the refurbishment of his residence. Now, these allocations have raised dust given the current severe cost of living crisis experienced by many in Africa's largest economy. This budget proposal, which has now been passed by the Senate, requested additional funding beyond the previously approved annual budget from Tinubu's predecessor, President Muhammadu Buhari. It also comes at a time when the government is urging Nigerians to endure hardships, stemming in part from a series of economic reforms implemented by the president. Africa's most populous nation is grappling with widespread unemployment, surging food prices, and a sharp depreciation of its currency. Ayomide Ladipo, head Tracka at BudgIT, joins me now. Hello, Ayomide, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tolulope. It's nice being here.
Let's start with what seems to be a bit of a misalignment, maybe not a disagreement, between the Senate and the House of Representatives. So the House of Representatives, they both approved this 2.17 trillion naira supplementary budget for the 2023 fiscal year as proposed by President Tinubu. But the difference is that while the Senate approved the budget as proposed, the House of Representatives stepped down this controversial 5.2 billion naira proposed for a presidential yacht, which has now been clarified to be for the Navy. So where does that leave us, seeing that although the harmonized budget report presented was jointly signed by the chairman of the Senate Committee of Appropriations, Solomon Adeola, and the chairman of the House Committee on Appropriation as well, Abubakar Bichi, the House refused to adopt this 5 billion naira yacht allocation. So where do we stand in terms of the legal aspect, particularly? Is this budget sailing through now?
I think whatever the president assents to, we are going to have to see which actually took a higher precedence. Is it the House of Senate on is it the House Committee on Appropriation or the Senate Committee on Appropriation? And another thing is that is also an issue that BudgIT has been raising, which is about the Supreme Court clarifying the abilities of the Senate to what their powers, the limit of their powers to remove or add or change things in the budget. For me, I think that majorly that is a distraction from the real issue, because beyond the issue of the presidential yacht, there are a lot of other line items that are quite frivolous and some illegal, that Nigerians are clamoring for. So for us, I think it is a grandstanding to take our eyes off the many other issues that we have raised, to just put out the news and say, oh, they've listened to our cries and removed the allocation for the presidential yacht and added it to the student loan. But there is almost other allocations worth about 800 billion naira that Nigerians are questioning, that nothing has been done, and we are waiting to see what will be released, what exactly will be signed by the president for release.
Okay, so
I think that's just a distraction.
So let's get to that, because that was my next question, because I know that following you on social media, there have been a number of line items that Tracka has flagged in the past few days. Initially, when we heard about this supplementary budget, we hadn't heard enough details, but it seems now that enough of the details are out. So take us through what the biggest concerns are. You're saying that there's about 800 billion that is raising concerns for you as Tracka. And Tracka's work, if you don't know, is to break things down, is to see where the money, government's money, both at the federal, the state, and even local levels is going, to the projects it claims that it's going, the timelines and things like that. So particularly for Tracka, what are some of the items that are raising red flags for you in this supplementary budget?
Thank you, Tolulope. A key one is the 400 billion naira allocated for cash transfer. The line item was just highlighted as cash transfer. And we're wondering, why do you need a 400 billion naira cash transfer to citizens with just 2 months left into the year, especially where recently in July, the Senate also passed an 813 billion naira supplementary budget, where they wanted to use 500 billion naira for cash transfers, but after outcry, they turned it to palliatives. There has been an history of these cash transfers not getting to the people it's supposed to get to. In what modalities are they going to use to distribute? What exactly is getting to the people? And so it seems like that line item is just another way to misappropriate funds. There's also the 50 billion naira for the construction of 40,000 renewed hope mini estates. And so it begs the question, why is that a line item that is important enough for supplementary budget? A supplementary budget is seen as, it's supposed to be, in quotes, an emergency budget to cater for the things that the earlier approved budget did not cater for, and so that it will help the country run through the year end. So why is a 50 billion for 40,000 mini hope estates? What is it for? If you break down that amount, it amounts to 1 million naira, 250,000 naira per mini estates. And we know that cannot even buy a land somewhere. So is that another way to also misappropriate funds? Why is this item important at this time? There is also the big issue of the State House receiving an allocation of 28 billion naira. Bear in mind that all the breakdown of the allocation to the State House, which is purchase of vehicles for the president, renovation of presidential lodges and all that, the State House already received an allocation of 14 billion naira in the 2023 budget. Out of the 14 billion naira, 7 billion was for renovation of the presidential lodge. So why does the president, at this time, when he's telling Nigerians that they should endure and Nigerians should take austere measures, Nigeria should face the consequences of the bad governance that we have been doing, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, why does he need an extra 8 billion naira to renovate and construct new office complexes? Why is there a 1.5 billion naira for the office of the First Lady, which is not a constitutionally recognized office? These are some of the things we have raised. There's also a 10 billion naira for the construction of a court of appeal in Abuja. It's a very big question. Why? What is urgent about the court of appeal building needing 10 million naira to be built as of this time? Let me stop there. So those are some of the issues that we have raised, and some of the things that we have flagged from the budget that needs to be addressed, that needs to be removed, because it is at this time an important expenditure, especially for a country that claims that it is broke and cannot afford to subsidize the things that they've been subsidizing for the citizens previously.
So interesting enough, it seems that list that you had, you're just checking off and there's more on the list. But is this a timing issue more than about even the leadership or the perception and sort of the narrative around it? Because this is a supplementary budget that's coming with a little less than 2 months to the end of the year. We've had issues with ensuring that even the allocations to ministries, departments, and agencies in a full budgetary year is judiciously used, and oftentimes, if not fully used, we've had issues making sure the money is returned. So, Ayomide, for Tracka, is this more issue around the timing of it, knowing that it's almost impossible to fully expend the money that is being budgeted for in this supplementary budget, or is it more about how it looks coming at a time like this, when, as you said, the president is asking Nigerians to make sacrifices and bear with the hard times because there are better days ahead?
That sounds like a slogan now. It's the two. First is the timing. First is I would like to call it tone deaf. And second is that the country cannot afford frivolities. One of the reasons why even President Tinubu and other economists were clamoring for the removal of the fuel subsidy, it wasn't because it was not a great way to actually alleviate the living expenses of citizens, but we're clamoring that given our economic realities, we could not afford to continue paying subsidy. A good example, in the 2022 budget, we projected to earn 10.7 trillion naira. And at the end of the year, we only earned 5.3 trillion naira. And out of the 5.3 trillion naira, we used, which was even more than what we earned, to pay back debt. For debt servicing, we used 5.65 trillion naira for debt servicing. We don't even know what debt servicing would amount to as of today, right now. So if we are saying that we cannot afford, the government said they paid 3.8 trillion naira for fuel subsidy last year, and they cannot afford it, and they've already accrued 1.7 trillion naira just between January to May for fuel subsidy this year, and they cannot continue to afford it. Our debt profile has risen tremendously. We are not, our revenue projections, we are not doing well. So we cannot, it is like you not earning enough. You are suffering, you're not earning enough, and you are now still making provisions for the little you want to earn and the little you want to borrow. You're not making provisions to spend frivolities from it. Right now, our budgets cannot be funded by our revenue. We have to continue to take loans. President Tinubu sent another request to the Senate to approve loans worth I think about £100 million and another $7 billion for them to approve for us to run the economy. So if we are taking loans to run the economy and we're not using the loans to actually put it into line items that actually improve the economic well-being of the citizens, while we're using it to renovate offices, to renovate the presidential quarters, to purchase vehicles. Recently, the first lady said she has her own money, she has her own cars, and so why do we need to spend 1.5 billion for the office of one person that is not even constitutionally recognized? She was formerly a senator. We know that she already has her own. She is a well-to-do person, if we have to say that. So why is, at this point in time, when we are borrowing to service the economy, we are not even making enough? We are borrowing to service the economy. Why is that where we are channeling our funds? Why are those line items even making their way into the budget in the first place? So these are the questions. One, we cannot afford it. Then two, it is tone deaf.
Okay, so I need to come back to something that involves the National Assembly as it is right now. Of course, you have talked about the fact that we're all still at this point where they're saying they have the right to reduce line items, to remove, or to not necessarily insert, but at least to adjust what is available in the budget proposal that is sent to them. But this is probably about 4 or 3 days into when Nigerians heard about a supplementary budget, and both the Senate and the House of Representatives have both signed or approved it. The House of Representatives removing that 5-point-something billion for a yacht. But at the end of the day, do we not need to return the questions that Nigerians are asking back to the National Assembly? Did they, whether it's the Senate or the House of Representatives, query this supplementary budget enough? Coming again at the very end of October, 2 months left to the end of this year. As much as I know that you guys had worked on, I think it was a petition to get the line item of the yachts removed, it seems they've heard. House of Representatives has done that. That's not enough. Should we not be returning the queries to the National Assembly, which should be querying the presidency for what has been put before it?
Thank you. I would like to use the word, a Yoruba word, a slang that says the Ogbewa handicap, which is basically that the budget got to the Senate on Tuesday, and in less than 48 hours, it was passed. Yesterday, Tracka started a petition for citizens to sign. We were supposed to send a letter to the Senate today, to the National Assembly today, to review and delete these frivolous items. And before the end of yesterday, the news had gotten that the Senate has already passed the budget. So now it looks like there is no. The point of democracy is for checks and balances. The executive prepares the budget, the legislative reviews it and ensures that everything is in place and it works for the people, and that takes a process. It takes time. So to see that the Senate in less than 48 hours passed a budget that should have been scrutinized, they should have called for public hearings, should have called for stakeholders in the public to give their thoughts, their opinions, and should have listened to the people to just pass it. It is merely like as if we're running a rubber stamp Senate, and the Senate is just there to approve whatever the president says, which is not good for our country, and it's not good for the well-being of the society, because now it seems like we used to say the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. And by the time we now get to the judiciary, it seems like there's no longer hope. It seems like all the three arms of the government who are supposed to check each other are just working in tandem with each other to advance their own selfish, if I'll use that word, their own selfish policies. It raises a lot of questions, and it just seems like the work that the media and the CSOs and other stakeholders are doing to uphold our democracy is going down the drain, because there is in no way is it ethical and is it proper for the Senate to pass a budget in just 2 days after it got to their table. And so these are the questions. Are we running a rubber stamp Senate?
All right, Ayomide, because of time, we have to go. But I do know we'll be having more conversations, because we are going to work to track through these line items, as well as even the ones for the larger 2024 budget as well. So we'll have to end the conversation here. Ayomide Ladipo, head of Tracka at BudgIT. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Tolulope. Have a nice day.